I remember praying to God, like, God, why do you hate me so much? Why'd you take away my father from me? That's my hero. Why are we so poor? And I'm short. Like, come on, God, give me a shot. But you know what he was doing? He was preparing me for my destiny, because he knew one day I was going to be somebody. And I don't forget where I come from. I don't look down on people because I make more money. If I'm ever looking down, it's to pick them up to get them to my level, never to look down on people. And that's how I started. But it gave me a drive. I was with my dad, and he knew, man, he's like, son, I didn't work this hard. And your mom worked this hard for you can end up like us. We want you to have a better life. You need to get a college education. But dudes, I just didn't like school. And the reason I didn't like it is because I wasn't good at it. I didn't have my teacher to influence me again, that I can be smart and I can learn. I didn't. I went back to my old self. See, having the right mentors in your life is everything. I went back to the old toxic self, beating myself up, feeling sorry for myself, being a victim. So guess what? All I seen out there, victim, hating the rich. They're good at teaching you that the rich are bad. Dude, I was, and I'm not getting into politics, but they taught me all that stuff. I was, because that's how they control you. The poor have no power. So and social media is crazy.
Yeah.
They control this social media. They want to keep us broke. Yep. It's crazy. And when I realized this, I'm like, wait a minute. I don't have to be broke. I don't have to settle for this. It changed my life. And my dad pushed me into financial services. It wasn't my choice. He pushed me into financial services. Like, hey, I got an amazing job for you. Show up on Tuesday. And I'm like, a job doing what? He's like, don't worry about it. Just dress up. And back then I used to hang out with all the cool black kids. So I thought I was half black, half Mexican, half like, and I hanged out all cool. I had 2 earrings on. I dressed like Jay-Z. I had a big old fake chain on. And I sat in the meeting with my hat backwards, everything. And I'm like, what the heck is this? And they were talking about insurance, investments, retirement accounts, loans. I thought it was the most boringest meeting in the world. And the black guy went on and he said, hey, we're going to show you how to be a part of a championship team. You see this ring right here? He had this nice, beautiful ring. You get this when you make $100,000 a year. You can win trips. Then our next trip's to Hawaii. I was like, why didn't they start with this guy? This is amazing. And I signed up, dude. I signed up and I just did everything they asked me to do and more.
How old were you?
I was 19. I was 19 years of age. And I'm not going to lie to you. In the beginning, it was tough. People would laugh at me like, I had no facial hair. I was like, please, God, give me some facial hair. I want to look older, right? And I looked like a 16-year-old knocking on doors, a referral that I got, and like, hi. And they're like, oh, my son's not here yet. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm the financial guy. They're like, are you serious? Like, kid, you're like younger than my son. Like, I'm not going to listen to you. And they would close the door on me. And I'm training somebody, an adult. And I'm like, hey, do you see blood on my face? And they're like, no, why? I'm like, can you believe people quit over that? That's why we're going to be rich one day.
Nice.
They care so much what other people think about them. I'm like, man, we're going to make it, Tony. And I would drop off my guy. And you think I felt sorry for myself, went home crying, you think I played a victim? What do you guys think?
No. Nope.
Of course I did, man. I'm feeling it. I was such a baby. I was like, damn, I suck at this thing. God,
well, like, a question about that, though. But did you do it in public?
Never in public.
I think that's the important thing.
Never in public. I cried all the way home, and I would get there, and my dad's like, someone told you no again. I'm like, no, I'm good. But I didn't cry to quit. I cried to get better. Yeah. I use that pain to like, dude, I'm going to get better. That the moment I speak, I'm like, and I would literally start, I'm like, hey, don't look at my face. Hear me. People judge experience based on age, and they're dead wrong. Nobody knows this business better than me. I study, I work harder than anybody else. No one will service you more than me. And they're like, whoa, see, experience is measured by experiences, not time.
Right.
And they're like, ooh. And I was telling them, sir, let me ask you something. If someone's going to do a surgery on your son, your daughter, and say, hey, I've been a doctor for 40 years, but I haven't done this surgery. This is my first time. Are you going to want to do that? Let that person do something? No. What about someone that's only been in for 2 years, but they've done 1,000 surgeries? Yep. They're an expert in their field. Who do you want? Like that guy. I'm that guy.
Yep.
And I went from victim, sorry for me, what did I do? Like, man, if I can feel sorry for myself, or I can work on my craft and become so damn good that people started bragging, you need to meet this kid. You need to meet this kid. Don't look at his age. He knows his stuff and he's passionate. My confidence breed confidence for them. And I started getting referred to everybody's kids. They're like, hey, if your kid's over 18, they need to work with this guy. Yeah. He changes the way they think, the way they talk, the way they dress. Like, I don't care if my son or daughter don't make a dime. Like, they are better people because they're around. I started getting referred. All these parents are referring their kids, and I started hiring their kids and their parents. I'm like, you want your kid to succeed? Come with them to the meeting.
Come help.
They have the ability, but they have no credibility. You got the credibility, and that's how my business started exploding.
So Mario, go real quick. Go back to that time where you started beating yourself up. You have these times you get rejection. Someone slammed the door in your face, whether it's literally or figuratively. I think an important time to, who were you going to talk to? Because there was someone you were going to talk to. A lot of people, when they're beating themselves up, they want to go to somebody else who's also beating themselves up, right? And they want to go meet with someone who also has the same feeling, so they can get like this, misery loves company thing, right? But I know you, and I know you weren't doing that. So who were you going to when you had those down times? Who were you going to for inspiration, motivation, education, these kind of things?
Dude, you just gave billion-dollar advice, because it's not if, it's when I'm going to be a billionaire. Yeah. And I'm telling you, what you just gave is everything. We go to people for the wrong count, the people that are doing just as bad as us, if not worse. I did that with certain people. I'm like, wait a minute, I feel worse. They're encouraging me to quit. Never go to them again. Right. I went to people that did it. People that were successful. I went to my uplines, people that were like, hey, this is what I'm going through. What should I do? What should I do? And they said, you know what, Mario, you're basing your numbers on 2 appointments. Mm-hmm. You're just not doing enough. You got to do 10, 20 of them. And then I'm like, it's normal. See, my ratios in the beginning, out of 10 appointments I would go on, I would close 1. But there's people out of 10 appointments, they would close 8, 10 of them. But talent's lazy. What happened to me? I started doing 20 appointments a week. And what started happening, I went from my closing ratio being 10% to 20% to 30%. Here's the problem. When your results start picking up, most people, you know what they do? They drop their activity. Yep. I didn't. I was so scared that I wasn't good enough. My biggest gift, Jeff, was I didn't think I was good enough. So I didn't want to lose my momentum. I didn't take no days off. I didn't take no holidays off. And what started happening, my skill level became a 10, but my activity was still a 10. And I created something called momentum. And when you got momentum by your side, you look way better than you really are. And when you don't got momentum, you look way worse than you really are. So that was my edge. People might have been more talented, might have even had more work ethic, but they stop and go. I didn't stop. And that's what separated me from everybody else. My fear pushed me to greatness, because fear can either cause you to paralyze yourself and hide, or like run your butt off like never before. Thank God I responded the right way.
So talk a little bit about your early stages in the financial services business. I mean, you're just getting going on that, I know, but I watched you for many years do well. And then I think there was some moments where you really started to just explode and take off. So I love what you just said there. Talent is lazy. That is so true, man. And you were struggling, so to speak, learning that work ethic, learning that persistence, that consistency. And over time, what has happened is now you are like, I mean, people that aren't in that company don't understand this, but you are the top dog in that company. You and your organization are just absolutely dominating. But I know this, Jeff knows this. It's not because of what you did yesterday. It's because of what you did years ago for a long time. So maybe talk about how long did it take to really get your feet under you, start making good money, make $100,000 a year, yep, and then explode.
And it's that, you know how they say compete, but don't compare? No, you got to compare. Like, dude, you got to and if they're beating you, that means I just got to do more. Not like, oh, it's not fair, everything happens easy. That's a victim mentality. I'm like, dude, they're beating me because they're outworking me. They're more talented, but I can step up. When I seen people take holidays off, vacations off, and they were not there yet, I said, got them. Mm-hmm. This is my edge, because I knew I was willing to sacrifice a couple of years. And to me, it wasn't sacrifice. Invest a couple of years for I can have a different level of lifestyle. And I know, like, man, this guy's very, very competitive. Yes, I am. I use my competitive drive. I remember, and I want you to understand this, like, guys, I was 4'10" when I was in high school, 4'10". And when we would play basketball, I was the shortest guy, and I would always get picked last. Always. And that drive me. It drive me so much that I would practice 3-4 hours a day. A month later, they picked me again last, but we won. And after that, they're like, I would be the first one picked because I had the most grit. I wanted to win more than anyone on the opposite team and even our team. And they're like, dude, he might not be the most talented, but he wants to win better. He's diving for the balls. He's guarding people. Like, he is the guy at every game we win because no one wanted to win more than me. So you can be a victim or you can do something about it.
I worked in the jewelry business for 5 or 6 years right after college. And that's actually where I was introduced to Primerica is one of my office manager at one of the stores that I managed. Her father was in Primerica and he recruited me into Primerica, thank goodness. And that's how I got started in the business I'm in now. And I was looking at a lot of things. The truth is I was really, really always have been focused on being successful somehow financially. I wanted that really, really badly. So I was looking at a lot of different things, and thank goodness I was introduced to the business to Primerica and I'm in now, and I just focused on being great at it, and then everything else happened from there. The money started to flow, and now started to happen.
You were preparing yourself. I know your story of going to Tom Hopkins and trying Amway and all the other type of businesses you kept trying to figure out a way to get free. And
exactly.
How much of that do you think prepared you so that when Primerica did, I know, and I also know you joined Primerica, then you quit at first, right? Didn't you quit one time and you came back?
Well, yes, that's exactly right.
So maybe talk about some of that.
I got re-recruited later. I just didn't do anything. Well, it's not so much I quit. I didn't even do anything.
Okay.
I did end up getting a license, but I never did anything until, this is probably a good thing to share. What happened is I got licensed. I didn't ever write a sale. I never went to a meeting. I never did anything. And then I was this is kind of the lot of things that happen in our lives that are life changing. But my son Dak was turning 5, and I asked the owner of the jewelry company I work for if I could have a Friday night off because we're gonna have a birthday party for my son Dak, who was turning 5. And he told me no. He says, no, I need you to be there because it costs me money if you weren't there. Because I was the manager of the store, and I was like, I couldn't believe that because I had just opened the store. I had been working, 60, 70 hours a week for a month or so, and then he told me I couldn't even attend my son's 5th birthday, and that was really that happening to me was the impetus that made me decide I was never going to work for somebody again. That I was going to figure out a way to be successful in something else, in a business of my own, where I didn't have to ask somebody for time off, And so that happened, and that's what got me to think about going. And so I recontacted the person that had talked to me about the business, and I said, look, I'm ready to go now. And then so I started part-time, and took me about a year to get to the point where I quit my job and went full time. But it was all started from my boss in the jewelry business telling me I couldn't have basically 3 hours off to attend my son's 5th birthday. So
yeah, I think it's interesting because Hector, you had talked about how you were always looking for a way to become successful. In that perspective, because when you end up at that moment, we've recruited thousands of people who maybe ended up in a similar situation, and they said, oh, I'm just too busy and I don't have the time to make Primerica happen, versus I know a similar thing happened to me. I'd gotten my pay cut. Brandon had followed up with me, and it was like, all right, I've got to do something, And I think the perspective of that, I am no longer going to allow somebody to control my paycheck. I'm going to go build a business, versus what most people's perspective is, I don't have enough time. So what do you think? Because I know all of this is mindset, right? It's how we perceive.
That's all mindset.
Everything. So what do you think gave you that catalyst to decide, I'm not going to let this happen anymore. I'm going to go above and beyond. I'm going to end up having to work more hours. Did you talk to your wife about that? What do you think was the catalyst to make that decision to just go, I'm going to make this happen?
Well, first, because what happened with my boss, that catalyst of not having control over my time and not even being able to attend my son's birthday party was just like, it was ridiculous, and I was so angry. I mean, I was really angry. So I made a decision right then that I didn't know what I was going to do exactly or how I was going to make this happen, but I was going to be my own boss and I wasn't going to work for somebody again. And and luckily I was already introduced to Primerica. So I didn't really get involved in it. I didn't do anything until that happened. So sometimes people need a push, if you will, right? And that was the push for me. That was the thing where kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, where I decided now I'm going to figure out how to make it happen for my family and for me. And luckily, in our business, people were even at that when I first got started, which is almost 40 years ago, people were making really big money. The guy that got that ended up being direct to Mike Sharp he was making $800,000 a year back in 1984, which is a lot of money today, let alone 1984, right? That was probably like the equivalent of making $3 million a year or more, I'd say. But I saw that he was doing that well, and he was just a nice guy. He wasn't anything extraordinary. And I felt, well, if he figured out how to do it, I could figure out how to do it. And so then I went to work and did the work to figure out how to do it, how to get great at the business. And then, I think the thing that allowed me to have the most success is I'm very good at teaching people how to do what I do. I think if you're going to become successful at any business, you have to duplicate yourself. You you can't do it all yourself. You need to have other people, helping and being involved. And so I learned how to, I think my claim to fame is I'm very good at training people and teaching people how to do what I did. And I think if you're going to grow up any kind of business, you have to duplicate yourself. It can't just be you, because there's only so many hours in a given day, right? 24 hours in a day. And you can't be everywhere at all the time. You have to have other people.
You often say that you're not a motivational speaker, you're a teacher, but right. It is motivating because you teach. And so you're one of the most motivational speakers I've ever listened to, because I know when I go to Hector's meeting or I listen to Hector Lamarque, I'm getting taught how to actually freaking do it,
Getting results is sure motivating.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's, I would talk about this all the time. If you really want to motivate your people, teach them how to be successful, because, that's what both of you guys did. You did the work to learn how to become successful, and you built, great businesses, and you made a lot of money. And that happens because you do the work to grow your skills and your knowledge and then apply those to helping other people do that. So that's all I ever did. I mean, I'm not a motivator. I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm a teacher. I always saw myself as a teacher.
Well, go ahead. I was going to say, one of the things I've noticed, Hector, and maybe you can comment on this, is a lot of times when you talk about getting great at something or becoming the best at somebody assumes that it's having this complicated knowledge, especially in the financial services industry like we're in. And what you did a great job of is taking that knowledge and simplifying it so that anybody believed that they could do it, and then go out and duplicate that process. Maybe you can comment on that a little bit, because I think it's powerful.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. That's what I try to do, is try to teach it in such a way that because in a lot of things, like if you're going to be a doctor, for example, that's a very, very complicated business to be in. The amount of study you have to do to become, a great physician, surgeon, whatever, is not many people can do it. Just from the educational standpoint, whatever. But in a sales business, anybody can do it. I don't care what business you're in. So, I was a very shy person before I got involved in Primerica. I see myself as I'm an introvert. I like being by myself. I don't have any problem being by myself. And so because I was an introvert, I was always worried about what people thought about me. And when I decided I was going to become successful, I said, I've got to stop worrying about what people think. I got to get great at what I do, and then I got to teach some people how to do it. And that was the impetus and the focus I had and still have today. All those years, I focused on being great so that I could teach others to be great. And the thing I think it's important now, that's really helped me the most is I stopped. In the beginning, I was trying to motivate people. I don't think you can motivate people. I think you can set an example and get people excited about doing something because they see what you're doing, or you could teach them the skill set so that they start having success on their own and be successful as a result of what you taught them how to do. But I stopped trying to motivate. When I stopped, it took me about almost 3 years. And into my third year, I was trying to motivate people. And then I said, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to just focus on finding motivated people. And then I'm going to teach them everything that I've done, everything that I'm doing to have the success I've had or I'm having. And that's what I focused on. So I stopped trying to get people to do it. I'd look for people's, if they were motivated, I could see that through their actions and their dedication and what all, then I would spend a lot of time with those individuals. And I stopped trying to get people to do it. And when I made that switch, that's when my business really took off. So like in 1980, what was it, 84, 85, 86 is when I really came to that conclusion, that sometime that year. So in my first year in the business, I made 18,000 part-time, working basically a couple of days a week. The second year I made 35,000. I was full-time. And that's when I become a regional vice president. And in my third year, I made 86,000 because I started developing. I made that switch to developing people versus trying to motivate people.
There's a saying that I love, and that is, you either hate changing enough to lose or you hate losing enough to change. And we all find ourselves in that moment where we hate losing enough to change. And finally, we begin to do the things we were unable or unwilling to do before, right? And that's where I was in that moment. And I think step number one to creating that change is that you've got to understand that it's an inside job, that nobody's going to come and change your life for you, that you're going to change your life for you. And it starts by owning it, right? Like today, everybody blames everybody for everything, right? Okay, it's the government's fault. It's my mom and dad's fault. It's my schooling. I got this education, but it wasn't worth it. So you need to help me with that. And so when you blame, you remain, right? When it's other people's fault, you give away your power to change the situation because you're waiting for other people to change it, but they didn't create it. They don't have the power to change it. You have the power to change it. And so understanding that change is an inside job. And I think there's a big point that I want to make here, right? I felt like a loser in that moment, but I was not a loser. I was losing. And there's a difference, right? Losing and loser are two different things, right? And we're all going to be in positions at some point in our life where we find ourselves losing. And so it's our ability to say, I don't want to lose anymore. Number one, to call it a loss, to not blame it on other people and say, you know what? I don't have to stay here. Where I am is not permanent. My current situation is not a permanent situation. And that's the start of all that. And when you lose and you lose and you lose, but you understand I'm not a loser, I'm in a losing situation, then you're able to change, you're able to move, you're able to reinvent, you're able to redirect, you're able to repurpose, you're able to focus on something new. And that's what happened to me. And that's what happens to 100% of the people who change their life in a dramatic fashion. All of us, nobody wakes up with a silver spoon in their mouth. Everything's taken care of for them and has this epiphany moment, right? It's like you learn this crap at the bottom when there's nowhere else to go but up. And it's the boldness and the courage to get up and to change and to grow that makes the big difference in life, I think.
Yeah, those choices you make when you're at the bottom determine whether or not you get up, period. Right? I mean, so many people are blaming or about why they're at or, not accepting responsibility or looking for a change. They continue to stay there and just complaining. And I think another thing you said, Ian, is that none of us look good while we're trying to get better, right? And I think for a lot of us,
hey, I always look good.
You always look good? Even get better? I don't know. I got some
Are you-
pictures. I got some pictures from back in the day.
Don't share
There
those.
you go.
I forget you know me.
I got to agree with Jeff. If you're looking good, it's unlikely you're getting better.
Yes.
Right?
I think you're right.
You're right. Because by definition, growth. I read a book once. I don't remember who it was by, but they were talking about practice. They said practice makes perfect, right? And that's not true. Perfect practice makes perfect, but that's not actually true either. Specific practice makes close to perfect. And this idea of specific practice, it's probably Malcolm Gladwell or one of those guys, but he was talking about the difference between the greatest, you name them in the world, pianists, athletes, intellectuals, business leaders, is that they take their practice. See, I love playing guitar, and I love sitting down and jamming on a song I know, right? And just grooving out to it. It's amazing, except I'm not getting any better because I already know that. Specific practice is when you go to the point of failure and you practice there. That's how we obtain the new skill. That's how we obtain the new level. But by definition, you are at a point of failure in that place. And so Jeff, I agree with your little dig there. It's unlikely we're getting better if we look good along the way, because we're not going to look good at that point of failure. We're just not going to. It's not, those two things don't coincide. We might be solidifying through repetition what we already know, but we're definitely not making new headway when we're looking good doing it, you know?
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, I think a lot of times that growth pattern is very uncomfortable. And so the majority of people avoid that feeling by transferring responsibility, then just saying, hey, look, I'm not as good as I need to be. I know it's uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good, but taking responsibility for where I'm at and then looking for ways to get better, whether that's a mentor, whether it's books, or whether it's, whatever it is that I need to get out of my situation is the ultimate strength in my eyes, right? I think when you look at somebody who said, man, you suck, but you just keep doing whatever it takes to get better and better, and then you watch them a year from now, you go, man, how strong was that individual who just kept going? They refuse to let up, and that really is the epitome of strength in my eyes.
And
right?
that lesson learned in that time frame is a lesson nobody can take from you, and probably the most important lesson you will ever learn, because life is going to hit you at some point, right? And it's that lesson where you learn how to take that pain and walk with it to your destination, to carry it, to endure it, because it makes you stronger,
yes.
Because it makes you better, where you can be grateful for it. Instead of why me, it's like, thank you, because I know nobody else is willing to do what I'm willing to do. And that sort of, there's something about every great leader, and it's this refined self-confidence, like they trust them. And I think there's major trust issues with most people these days with themselves, because they've been saying they're going to do something so long and they don't follow through, and they don't trust themselves. And it's in that time, right, where you're not good, where you have the pain of having to get better, when you're realizing every day your shortcomings, but you persevere, you continue, you persist. It's that endurance that you gain in that time that you take in anything moving forward. Say, I don't care what it is. If I'm willing to commit to it and keep plowing forward, I'm going to learn it. Eventually, I'm going to be good. And if I keep going, eventually I'm going to be great. And if I keep going after that, eventually I'm going to be the best in the world at this. And when you know that about anything, wow, talk about freedom to be able to live your life. Like, I don't care what life throws at me. I know we're going to be good because we paid the price. We know what it takes to get there. It's so powerful, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think, there's nothing, you can't take anything away from somebody who's gone through the discomfort, gone through the uncomfortable times, overcome, and they know they've done that time and time again. And you see a lot of people right now that are doing things like the Wim Hof method, right? They'll hop in an ice bath for 5 or 10 minutes, and you go, who the crap would want to do that? But the point of that is, I think, is the mental toughness of overcoming that discomfort to a point where they look forward to it every day, and they get done with it and they go, man, I did that. I can now do other things today that I can overcome. And that's why, I mean, I've always enjoyed fitness and running and working out or biking. And when it gets really tough, I don't like the tough part, but I love when I'm done, the confidence it gives me to know that when it got tough, I continue to push through. And no different from any of us in our businesses, right? When it got tough and we knew we weren't very good, some people look at that and they go, man, this must not be for me because this is really difficult. Like you said, Jeff, that's just God telling you suck, right?
Yes, it is, right? And being willing to confront the pain, right? Like most people just avoid the things that are uncomfortable, but being willing to just confront it, right? And I think that's the whole thing, like with the ice bath, it's like knowing, hey, I know how this is going to feel, and I know I really don't want to do it, and then getting in and going, oh my gosh, this is freezing cold, but being willing to stay in it and to a point to where you go, okay, now I'm in control and I choose when I leave. I think it's the epitome of success.
Here's the thing, though, about an ice bath is before you get in, you know what's coming.
Yeah.
What's going to happen in life when you don't know when it's coming and you get hit?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's why it's so crucial, and listening to you here, Ian, just talking about overcoming these things so that when those times do happen, it's coming, right? We're all going to get hit. And we better be prepared. People ask me all the time, what are you training for? I'm like, life.
Yes.
Man. I mean, I just want to be ready for anything.